Great to have you here. This is the inaugural Spotlight on series, and this is going to be our first session with Viv. So the whole idea today is to shine a spotlight in Cork. If you look at that golden glowing halo there over that godlike county that is Cork, with something coming down from the heavens, we are shining that spotlight in Cork. There's Viv. And before we get into it, then I wanted to talk a little bit about the organization, what we're doing. But really the point here is to move beyond Dublin. A lot of the stuff that we've done with Blockchain Ireland, because a lot of the people are based here, has been and is centered around Dublin. But as per what I mentioned at the outset there are a lot of people like Viv around the country. And what we want to do is give these people a spotlight, shine a light on what they're doing, and show that there's innovation happening outside Dublin and it's thriving across every 32 of the counties in Ireland. And what we're going to do then is feature one county at a time. Each episode is going to feature somebody from the regional ecosystem. We're mainly looking for founders, builders, and people who are promoting what we would classify as grassroots growth. And first up, I'm going to sound like a broken record here about how great Cork is, but what we want to do is talk about the pioneers who are driving that forward. Viv, with Wealth of Wisdom, his other communities, and the community building he's doing there is going to be the first up, and arguably the best stop on the journey that we make. And we're going to break it down like this. We're going to have a 55-minute session. We've got the welcome session right now, a little bit about the Spotlight series. I'm going to pass it over to Viv then to talk about what's happening in Cork. We'll do a little fireside chat then towards the end. We're going to enable the audience to take part in that with a focus on Wealth of Wisdom. We're going to have some closing remarks. And a couple of other things then that we wanted to highlight the work that we're doing as part of the Startup and Web3 work group. So we're talking about ecosystems. We're talking about showcasing what people are doing. There are all sorts of companies, all shapes and sizes around the country doing amazing things. And a part of the work that Stuart and I are doing in the working group is putting together a living visual map of Ireland's blockchain, crypto, and Web3 landscape. What we found is that there is way more than 100 plus companies that are mapped across the island. And what we're doing now is putting together a map of all of these companies. However, what we realized during the course of this is that, like Viv, like the work he's doing, there are a huge amount of companies that aren't on this map. And what we want to do is put out a search and rescue mission. We're going to crowdsource from the community of people that we have and tell us about who is the next person, company, organization that we should feature. And we want to span blockchain, Web3, infrastructure, fintech, identity, and break out these categories because, again, there's a load of good work happening. And one of the things that we have put in place so far, and I got to be open about this, it does need some work, is a directory listing. And we've broken it out then into things like 13 different categories from DeFi, financial services, AI, blockchain. We want to make it easy for people to browse through this from A to Z and have a visual representation of where people are so that we can enable open listings, people can contact us. And really the mission of the working group that both Stuart and I are promoting is to promote Ireland as the best place in Europe to launch and scale Web3 startups. So with that in mind, I am going to pass the ball or the schlitter over to Viv down in Cork to talk about Cork, what's happening there, to talk about his ventures and to shine a spotlight on both the innovation that he's doing and they're doing. So Viv, I don't want to steal your thunder. I could talk about the work you're doing all day. So I will stop sharing my screen and I'll pass it over and I'll let you do what you do best and take the reins.
Yeah, look, thanks very much, Niall. I suppose I'd just like to say thanks for the opportunity and I'm deeply honoured to be the first person on this spotlight. I love, I suppose, what Blockchain Ireland are doing. I love the path you're taking it on and I look forward to being part of that path and being more involved in the communities here in Ireland. I guess an awful lot of what I've done, while there's certainly community in Ireland that sort of follow what we do and are members in our community, an awful lot of what we are involved in is from around the world. We've invested in companies all over the world. I've traveled all over the world to research those companies with a view to investing ourselves as an individual, as a company, but also bringing those projects to our community. I suppose to fully explain what WOW is or what it does, and look, I have a slide, a very simple slide that hopefully just gives a very simple explanation about what WOW is. I won't read it, you can read it for yourselves. But for me, what's more important than what WOW is why WOW is. And any company I ever look at from an investment point of view, The what is usually important, and all the normal questions you would ask about looking into a company and potentially investing into a company. It's the why that is the decision maker. And I think it's important I should give my own why and why WOW exists. To do that, ask you to give me a couple of minutes just to give you a little bit of the background and how this all came about. I came back from being in college in London with a maths and sports science degree and didn't really follow that role. When I came back, I got into the whole sales side, and soon after arriving home, I got into importing and distributing at a large scale in Ireland, distributing to retail outlets, importing from all over the world. It's a business I worked incredibly hard at for 20 years. What's the relevance of that? Maybe we'll see a little later on. But that started in around 2000. About 2015, late 15, I fell across cryptocurrency, and of course, namely Bitcoin initially, I guess like most people do. And it certainly intrigued me, both from the potential of just being able to invest in it and see where it goes, but what it actually meant and what it ran on and what it was all about. And then I started to discover these other crypto projects, and I started research into what made them different. Why was Bitcoin the number one? Why was the next some other one number 10, and so on? So I really got into the sort of the research side of the crypto space and wanted to understand what it was all about, what the potential was, and how I might get involved. And so I gradually started to invest bits and pieces, started to do the research, and really started to gather a little bit of momentum and decide this is where I really want to be. Now, all bearing in mind the business I had built was still running, and I was still very heavily involved in that business. But more and more, I got more intrigued by the whole crypto space, blockchain, etc. Then came the sort of 2016, 17 time, which was the time of the ICOs as Wild West stuff. And I absolutely fell into that, started investing into all sorts of everything for no more reason than a nice YouTube video or a message from somebody other in crypto saying this is the next one. Very much fell into that, made a lot of money, lost a lot of money, but still managed to come out in a pretty good place by the end of 17. And then I made yet another mistake, and I bet everything and so much more on one. And I think you could nearly tell the end of that story. That didn't go particularly well. Found myself in an unbelievably difficult position in a financial level by 2019, so much so that the business I built for 20 years became collateral damage to that whole scenario. And certainly as a guy with a wife and 4 very young kids at the time, that was not a good place to be. However, it was the seed of what was to come. And what I realized at that stage was if I was going to have a future in blockchain and crypto, I needed to get back to that research model of really, truly understanding anything that I was going to put any funds to. At this stage, there wasn't a lot of funds, but there was time. And I really went deep into trying to find what I believe might be the next big one, the one that I would have a very high percentage chance of working, but still had that sort of asymmetrical upside potential. And so it went, and fortunately, I did find a really good project. I put anything I could into it, and it in itself did extraordinarily well, and in turn rolled me into a few other ones that did quite well as well. And I found myself in a very fortunate position a couple of years later where I was almost at the opposite end of the scale I described in 2019. And so I guess I got to the point where I didn't need to be in the rat race. And I found myself for a summer being in a comfortable position of not having to do much, didn't do a lot, but suddenly realized that was absolutely not for me. And I wanted to really get back at it. And what came to me was this: there's an awful lot of people out there who were aware that cryptocurrency was out there. Some people were getting involved in it, but many were going to end up in the same pathway as I had, which was put money in here, probably very hard-earned money, and probably the majority were going to lose it. And so that was the seeds of which WOW was born. I set up a platform where I wanted to try and be able to show people that there was a huge opportunity out there, something that could make a big difference to their financial positioning, but also do it in a way that was educated, safe, and give them access to projects they probably wouldn't see otherwise. And so that was the basis of which WOW was built. Brought in some really brilliant people with me. We created this fantastic team, but we were absolutely hell-bent on creating a platform that was set up in the right way, protected the people that were going to become part of the community, but give them real opportunity. And so at the heart of WOW was education on crypto, opening up the information on what the opportunities might be and how they could do that in a safe manner. And that's something that we still to this day take massive pride in. We've had a very serious positive track record. Our numbers are not huge in that we're in the hundreds, but the minimum buy-in to this was $1,000 and the highest end was 100 grand. And we had a lot of members in all of that scale. But we've had a really good road, but we continue to try and develop above and beyond that. I had a lot of high net worths who were saying, look, I'm not interested or available or have the time to be able to follow all the information and then go and take that information and do X, Y, and Z. Can I give you my money and will you look after it? That was an absolute no-no for me, but it did get me thinking that there was something else that was required in this. And so we started looking at what could we do for the high net worths, and that's where Blockhaven came in. It took us about 18 months to 2 years to put together. And it is literally going to soft launch within the next week or two. But this is aimed at the high net worth individuals who literally want to be able to register on the platform, transfer funds, and have it looked after. And that is exactly what this is. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to create that overall ecosystem that works in a way that we give people the opportunity to understand there's an opportunity there, educate them on how they can do that either for themselves or give them a gateway, have them understand the upside, give them access to projects that they're unlikely to get access to otherwise, and give them the potential for those really positive outcomes. This is something that we've been absolutely dedicated towards, and it's something that I absolutely enjoy usually because it connects me now with so many innovative people, the likes of Niall that I got introduced to back along, and we can see there's always synergies. There's so many companies out there who are hugely innovative. And what I love about the crypto space, the blockchain space, the Web3 space is it's the collaboration. Everybody's looking to try and see, is there some way that they can help your project? Can you help their project? And the synergies just grow and we all multiply together. And that's something I love about being involved in this particular space. And so we continue with that mission. And just recently, we've come out with the crossover. So we're putting out a newsletter 5 days a week. And what this is built to do is give people information on what's happening in the overall macro, what's happening out there, and how that affects risk on assets, whether that's the market, the stock market, whether it's crypto, whether it's innovation, whether it's AI, whatever field that is. We're bringing that information, collating it, bringing it in from all avenues and putting it into a nice, simple 3 to 4 minute read where people can stay up to date. This is built off the back of something I've been doing now for 2.5 years, I think. Every Friday, I put out a video. It's usually 8-10 minutes long, which again is that overview of the week, what's been happening and why it matters. If someone told me 10 years ago, I would be interested in what's happening in the US, in the politics, in what the Fed are doing, what the interest rates are, the debt pile they're in, and all the ramifications of what that might mean, I wouldn't have believed them. Whereas now I follow literally on a daily basis purely because I have a clear understanding. It has a very significant impact on the potential outcomes of projects that we look at and look to invest in. And so the crossover is there to try and, again, it's adding on to the base layer of the education and opportunity and really starting to give direction to people on a daily basis where they can really hone in on what's happening. And so what we're trying to build here is an overall ecosystem that gives people, rich or not so rich, access and information and education that gives them the opportunity to, number one, maybe make their financial situation better, but also connect them to others who might be looking to do something similar. And this is something I take great pride in what we're doing. And the crossover is something now that we're looking to grow very dramatically. There is going to be a pro version coming in the near future. This one has been running for about 5 weeks now, but we are looking to grow it significantly. And just out of interest, we have literally just launched a competition now for people who want to join on this, which they can do on the crossover.io. But if you refer it, every referral that clicks onto this is like one ticket, and we're giving away 1 ETH at the end of July or when we reach 1,000 subscribers, whichever comes first. And the top 3 referrals get 1 sol each as well. So yeah, look, that's a very quick overview of what we're doing. And I'm based down in Skibbereen. It takes an hour and a half just to get to Cork City. We're a little bit out of the way. It does have its challenges from the point of view of, as I'm sure you all know, the vast majority of events happen in Dublin. For us to go to an event in Dublin from here, it's not if you're in Dublin, you can probably choose to pop into one of those things for a few hours, go back to your office and go back to work. For us, at the very minimum, it's a full day. Realistically speaking, it's going up the night before. And due to that, then you end up going to less of these things. And that might be part of the reason why I'm not as connected within Ireland as I'd like to be. And certainly I'm hoping this is the first step where I absolutely would like to get more connected. Of all the companies we've invested in, there was one Irish one in the last 4 or 5 years, one recently, and that's been it. I would love to support others within Ireland if they've got good projects and we can help, whether that's through funding or otherwise, then we'd be more than happy to connect on that. And if not, we'd just love to have conversations with other people that are doing great things within the space. Hopefully that gives a general quick overview. There's other great stuff happening in Cork as well. I'm sure many of you on here will know Brian Elders. Brian is living in Skibbereen as well, literally a few miles from where I am. I was unaware of Brian, believe it or not, until it's probably 3 years ago now, but it was a guy in Galway said, "You're both living in Skibbereen, do you not know each other?" So yeah, we got introduced, and again, loads of synergies, but a great guy that has done huge things within crypto, and I think, and within Web3 in general. And I think a lot of people within crypto were intentionally living outside the regulatory part of what's going on. I think most people can see now it's getting more and more important to be in a regulated situation, and they very much have led the way. Obviously, he's involved with a company called Black Manta, which is a regulated financial services in blockchain. They are tokenizing. They have STOs, which is security token, which, raising money and showing people how to raise money in a regulated way. They really have been away. They're almost too early. They were so early to the space, but now it's starting to pay off when we can see, of course, regulation has been brought in all over the world, and certainly in Europe, which of course means Ireland too. Of course, he's had a massive success recently with another company they've got called Sorted. They've created a wallet which is available on like KAI mobile phones. So they're real cheap end mobile phones, which can't really take things like MetaMask or any hot wallet, cold wallet. They've built one that actually does work on this platform. They're in over 160 countries. They have 500,000 users. And they've just did a raise where they raised $4.4 million, of which the lead funder there was Tether, of course, being the creator of USDT and one of the biggest names in the Web3 space. So a huge success from them. And this wallet that they've created is only going to get bigger and better. So there's many things happening in Cork. There's many more, I'm sure. But that just gives a sort of a brief feel, hopefully, of what we're doing here, what others are doing here. There are challenges to working, we'll say, outside of Dublin, but there is still huge opportunity and huge potential. And it just goes to show with the technologies that are out there, you can build worldwide businesses from any part of Ireland. And so hopefully these are a couple of ideas of what's happening out there. And again, appreciate the opportunity to share the story, what we're doing, where we're trying to go, and hopefully get more connected within the Irish space over time.
Great, Viv. Look, thank you so much. Great job. And always great to highlight Cork. So, Viv, I've prepared some questions beforehand. Some of them you've talked about already, and we're going to open it up to the audience to put out any questions that they may have too. But other than our buddy Brian at Sorted Wallet, Black Manta, everything they're doing, is there any other companies that you're aware of? For example, in Cork, I went through Techstars back in 2016, and a very good friend of the blockchain ecosystem in Ireland, Pete Townsend, ran the Techstars 3 cohort for 4 years in Ireland. And one of the companies that came out of Cork are called LiveDuel. Will is the founder of that. And they are doing, I think, now decentralized prediction markets, which is a hot topic. Another Cork-based company that have a blockchain component recently raised over 10 million. They're called TrustApp. But any other hidden gems that we might not be aware of in the Cork ecosystem, or even in the South in general, that you know of, that the audience may not be aware of? And who may we be able to add to our ecosystem map?
Yeah, look, I suppose first and foremost for me, the vast majority of what I've been involved in, unfortunately, in one way, has been outside of the country. And a lot of the investments we made have been outside of the country, not by design, but just they're the projects that I've come along across. But there's a good company in Cork there called Interlay, and they're trying to make Bitcoin more. If you hold Bitcoin, in a lot of cases, there's not an awful lot you can do with it. What they're trying to do is make it more, I guess, usable to use it, whether that's for raising funds against it, adding liquidity or earning from holding it. That's been one of the challenges for Bitcoin holders for a long time. Ethan has a much bigger ecosystem on which you can do an awful lot with. Bitcoin has been buy it, hold it, and which of course hasn't been a bad thing to do if you've done it over the years. But they're just trying to open up the doors to make it more user friendly and be able to do more with it. And so it's projects like that I think are required within the space. But of course, as time goes on, there's more and more of these type of projects out there. And yeah, look, there's plenty going on here. We're fortunate actually in Skibbereen. There's a hub called Ludgate, and it gives people the opportunity to rent office space with very high internet access, and of course, potential for collaborating with others in there too. There are opportunities here. There are people that move to this area for the quality of life. Traffic isn't too big of an issue for us down here. While it has its challenges, there's certainly the opportunities there. And of course, what are you working for if you want to have the quality of life piece too, if you can?
Great, thanks, Viv. And if you were to make any recommendations for Cork to strengthen its role as a hub for blockchain, Web3, crypto, I know you're educating people, and I've seen people in your community who are, I would classify them as very non-crypto natives, but they get roped in by the way you explain it in an easy to understand manner, and you take away a lot of the complexity with your stuff that I've seen out there on X and YouTube. But you talk about some of the unique strengths that Cork has: quality of life, location, etc. And links to academia would be one other thing that I think we could point to, and some of the bigger employers like Apple down in Cork that people keep coming back to. But what unique advantages do you think Cork has that we could play to our strengths and make Cork more of a hub for blockchain, etc.? One of the things that I know that we want to do with Blockchain Ireland is get a meetup, get an event going in Cork, get more people together and educate people about what's happening in the innovation. But being on the ground in beautiful Skibbereen, what do you think Cork can do to make itself more of a hub?
I think one thing, and funny you mentioned meetups. So myself and Brian have actually been just discussing exactly this. We've met up on a number of occasions to see, is there a way that we can create an event in this area, which of course we want to create it for that connection and bringing people together, the same as any, but we want to create the social aspect of it is very high on the list of the idea behind it. And whether that means going out for a couple of drinks or going to many opportunities of appreciating the area here, which, maybe for many, it might be nice to be outside the city, whether that's from Dublin or just being a different part of the country, experiencing the area, and again, create that connectivity. And maybe all the people who are doing something at a very early stage, who might be going up to events in Dublin and maybe not well connected, give them the opportunity to come to somewhere a little bit more local, get the opportunity to mingle in a sort of non-business way so that they can maybe be brave enough to tell people about what they're doing and maybe get a bit of help, whether that's with contacts or experience or funding or whatever it might be. And I think creating something like that might be a little bit different, I think is important. I really think the social aspect of it is, and for someone that's not as well connected within my own country, far more connected outside of it, that's an aspect I myself would be very keen on, and so believe that quite possibly could be similar for many others.
And again, my own experience since 2014, really building and blockchain, deploying applications around the world, that was unfortunately, and it seemed at the time inevitably, one thing that we had to do was look beyond Ireland and go abroad, because there was a lot of fear, there was a lot of misconceptions about the technology. But why do you think that was? Do you think it's still the case? And then maybe second part of the question, Viv, is mainstream adoption in terms of making it something that's not a dirty word. What do you think are some of the use cases that people should be looking at? But 2-point question, and what will rope you back into engaging with Ireland again?
I suppose first of all, yeah, back in the day, talk about crypto was a joke. I remember talking to my friends about crypto, and I was getting more and more excited about it in 15, 16, 17. But talk about it amongst my friends was, oh, if it's so great, buy us a drink there or whatever. And which of course at the time wasn't too easy to do. But that has maintained, and it's amazing for people that are outside the crypto bubble. For a lot of people, yes, there's people starting to wake up to the idea that, oh, actually, blockchain and crypto and has an actual place. And to me, and again, when you're in the bubble, you would think this is really obvious, like, because you've got the biggest institutions, biggest banks, governments, presidents talking about this, and yet some people still think that, oh, it's crypto and it's not real and it's not real money. It's amazing that some of that's still there, but certainly it has changed a huge amount over the last number of years. Certainly, yes, for me, I've been to Hong Kong, Singapore, Rio, Dubai. We've set up companies in Dubai, Bangkok, you name it. We've been all over the world because that's where it's been happening. And of course, Dubai has been very successful because they opened the doors up to crypto long before it was getting covered by regulation elsewhere. And because of that, they're way ahead of the market, and that's where a lot of the business is done. But it saddens me a little bit that it hasn't been more, the governments here haven't been more proactive in really putting their foot forward here, and had the potential, but still can have the potential to make Ireland a bit of a hub and create an attraction for people to build, because there's a huge amount of building now within crypto, within blockchain, and importantly within AI. And I think a lot of people potentially look at AI as being a competitor to the whole blockchain space, because of course you can see all the investing right now is moving into anything to do with AI. We see the stock markets popping off left and center with some major companies behaving like meme coins. We see SpaceX, of course, coming out just lately, going through the roof from incredible numbers, currently at something like 2.2, 2.4 trillion in valuation, which is crazy stuff. And by the way, that was a project that we got people access into. We bought into XAI as a company and we put it in front for our higher level community members, and they got the opportunity to buy into, which is now a 10, 12x. They're the type, it's not all crypto stuff, it's innovative products. But the point I was making regarding AI is, so I think a piece that people are missing is the values of companies in AI are going through the roof. Crypto has gone through a pretty tough time from price points valuation. For me, that's absolutely unbelievable opportunity, because AI is running off crypto rails. And that's the funny thing. And it needs blockchain, it needs crypto to be able to function at the highest level when we look at things like AI agents. And so there's a massive opportunity for people to spot that gap, get into the right projects and get the upside of that. So I'm not sure that actually answered your question. What was the second part of that question?
Yeah, the next part then was mainstream adoption, in terms of what you think are the most likely use cases to succeed. I know you're working on some interesting things yourself. But yeah, in terms of that, and you've gotten to my third part of the question, which talks about how we can engage people more. But yeah, mainstream adoption, use cases, along with the intersection of AI and crypto. What do you think, what's exciting for you that you're working on and you think is going to help change or keep changing people's perception?
Yeah, look, obviously the use of AI within crypto space is going to be huge anyway, but I think that mainstream adoption, I think one of the big things is going to be the whole real world assets tokenization. So for the average punter buying into something like real estate, they all say, oh, you should buy into real estate or you should buy stocks and shares or whatever. For a lot of people, that's not very accessible. For people who are well off and are connected in that space, then yes, that's an easy process. But for the average person, it's not. And if you don't have 400 or 500 grand to spend, real estate isn't really on your radar. Most people struggle to buy their own house over 20, 30 years, and that's as far as it goes with real estate. But with tokenization, there's going to be the opportunity to buy into real estate, and you can put $10, $20, $50, $100 into the likes. It could be artwork, it could be, it could be a fraction of certain shares. So it's going to open opportunity up to the average punter. And of course, within that, there's opportunity for creators and business owners to move into that space. So there's huge opportunity in that area. Of course, AI agents are going to pretty much do everything for us in the not too distant future, and the rails for that are already being built now by some very large companies. But there are opportunities within that space for people that want to do that. But on the other side of that, if you're building a platform where you're selling something or other product or service, you're going to want to have a platform that can accept AI agents into your platform and make the payment for that on the behalf of whoever is running that AI agent. So there's lots to be considered. I look at AI a little bit like this. Back in the dot-com era, when the internet really was starting to be used by individuals, many people that had physical presence, physical stores or businesses felt, I don't need the internet because I've got a physical store. People come through my door. Over time, people start to realize, well, actually, by having a website, more people come through my door. Eventually, people going, actually, I can sell it on my website as well. And eventually it was like, actually, I don't need the physical store. I just need the internet. And of course, some of the biggest companies in the world now are just purely internet based. I think AI is going to have a similar movement in that a lot of people are going, well, I'm doing fine without AI, I don't need AI, and AI is bad. And over time, people go, well, actually, if I have an AI agent working for me, I can do 10 times as much as I used to be able to do. And gradually, it'll become where AI will take over an awful lot of what you need to do, which then you can choose what to do with that free time, or you can be more productive, whichever it is. But there's certainly going to be huge opportunities in that whole space. But the Web3 is at the absolute core of that. And if people have that true understanding, then they'll start to see that there's massive opportunities there, whether that's creating something yourself, finding a business that's doing something in that area, and maybe getting behind them. Sometimes that could be financially. Sometimes it might be you go in and you actually become part of that business, show them what you can do for them. There's many ways of getting involved in a project, whether it's yourself as the founder or in with other people. And that's the part I absolutely love doing. Yes, we're creating our own businesses, but I absolutely love getting in behind other projects and hopefully bringing some of our experience or expertise, sometimes funding, whatever it might be, to try and help that project along. And of course, in doing so, we quite often come across people who can do the same for us. And that's obviously, those synergies are amazing to be a part of.
Great. And Viv, if you were a young founder and you're based in God's County, aka Cork, besides going to Blockchain Ireland or going to a Wealth of Wisdom yourself, what would you advise a young or old founder or anybody interested in the technology? Where should they go? What should they look at? Who should they talk to? And in terms of the meetups, anything you can, any guidance for people who will either watch it back or hear, who are in the region or in Cork itself, who can, where would you go?
Yeah, get connected, I think, is probably the first part, because whatever you can do on your own, you can do many multiples of with others' help, with other people's experience. I'm very happy to talk to anybody. If I can help some along the way, point them in the right direction, connect them with somebody, help them in any manner, I would do that. I would love, when I got into the crypto space, had no one to talk to. There was no one else I knew in it. Gradually, of course, you start to meet people who are involved in it. But as the crypto goes through its 4-year cycles, an awful lot of those people will fall out of it again. They're in it for the hype, and then the hype dissipates and they move on to other things, and that's quite fine. But there are some who really stick with it, believe in the core of what it is and where it's going and the opportunities that are there. And so anyone that's starting out or early stage, for me, the number one thing is get connected. And sometimes that does mean driving to Dublin or going to whatever event, wherever, connect with communities, get involved, connect with Blockchain Ireland. It's something I personally should have done a long time ago. But again, I suppose my eyes were outside the country, really, not for any specific reason. It's just that's the way it was. And I probably should have returned my gaze here a little bit earlier. But look, here we are. We'll do it from here.
Totally. And I think there's a lot of people in the same boat as you, and they feel that same way. And I was one of them people myself. But yeah, Blockchain Ireland we really want to change that. And there's so many good people doing great things here that we have to really shine that spotlight, which was the entire idea behind today's event. I'm going to turn it over to people in the audience to put their hand up if they've got a question. I'll give people permission to speak if they would like to. But for the final few minutes, if anybody has a question they'd like to put to Viv, or how they can connect with him or anybody in Cork or the region, put your hand up now or forever hold your peace. And if anybody wants to chime in, please do. Otherwise, that was, Viv, a great session, and they're really great to see people in Cork doing amazing things that are hidden gems. And we hope to feature a Wealth of Wisdom in everything you're doing. There are multiple companies, which blows me away that you can get so much done yourself to be part of our ecosystem map. We're going to promote that and hopefully very shortly get a date in the diary for an event in Cork. So I don't see any questions come.
And while we might be waiting for questions, thanks for the opportunity of coming on. Honored to be, like I said, the first one on doing this. Looking forward to watching the other ones. I'm excited to see who else is around the country and what they're doing, and very much looking forward to getting more involved with Blockchain Ireland myself personally, and getting more connected and getting up to Dublin if that's what it takes, and connecting with whomever. And for anyone that's down this neck of the woods, please feel free to get connected too.
I think we're going to leave it there. That was great. Off to a great start. The first of many, the first of 32. And we will have an announcement next week about our next county. There is a Munster county in the running to take on that mantle, but we will be back shortly to announce that. But Viv, thank you for shining spotlight on Cork. Highly enjoyable. Love the energy. Keep it going and keep promoting blockchain and Web3 in Cork. And thanks to everybody for tuning in.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.